الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على البشير النذير السراج المنير سيدنا ونبينا وشفيئنا إن شاء الله بالقاسم محمد. اللهم صل عليه وعلى أهل بيته مظاهر جمالك وجلالك الذين كلامهم نور وأمرهم رشد ووصيتهم التقوى وفعلهم الخير وعادتهم الإحسان وسجيتهم الكرم واللعن على أعدائهم الشاكين فيهم المنحرفين عنهم أجمعين. أما بعد، صدق الله تعالى حيث يقول وهو أصدق القائلين وقوله الحق. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودعك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر وأما السائل فلا تنهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث. By the morning brightness and by the night when it covers with darkness, your Lord has not abandoned you, O Muhammad, nor has he detested you. And the hereafter is better for you than the first life. And your Lord is going to give you, and you will be satisfied. Did he not find you an orphan and give you refuge? And he found you lost and guided you? And he found you poor and made you self-sufficient. So as for the orphan, do not oppress him, and as for the petitioner, do not repel him. But as for the favor of your Lord, report it. Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So today my topic is going to be about dealing with the loss of someone in your life. I found this surah perfect for my speech today. And just as a side note, as a disclaimer, these are my own sort of personal thoughts that resonated with me when I was reading this particular surah. So first of all, what I want to do is I want to pick up on this theme of duality. In the first two ayahs we read وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى. So by the morning brightness and by the night when it covers it with darkness. So in this life we are going to have ups and downs. There will be bright days and the not so bright. And in terms of dealing with the loss of a loved one, whether it be due to death or falling out or whatever the case is, that moment when somebody comes into your life, whether it's your newborn son, your daughter, you've got a niece, nephew, or a friend, or for us Hausa students, when that moment when this people or person comes into your life, they make you happy, they make you smile, they'll show you the meaning of life. But on the other hand, they will also annoy you, agitate you, and even make you angry. And the end part, this what I just mentioned about making people angry, some people might think that this is describing me. But still, we see these moments where our loved one annoy or agitate us. We see this as part of our brighter days in the grand scheme of things. In the bigger picture, what we tend to do with our close ones is we tend to overlook their shortcomings. But at the same time, we have a duty to sort of guide our friends, our family members, so they don't make the same mistakes. But what I would like to focus on now is how about the real dark days, when you are alone and vulnerable, when you are feeling low, when you at the loss of a loved one, whether it be a family member, a friend, or a companion. How about the times when you are mentally and spiritually fatigued? How about the night when it is covered with darkness? Sometimes one thing may happen in our life and it changes us totally forever. Salawat. So what may happen to us is either this, what will change us would be the death of a loved one or a family member, or even someone falling out with us, whether we be as students or our friends or on the football team or whatever it is. And because of these moments, i.e. death or falling out, it changes our perspective on life forever. And when burying a family member or a close friend of yours, the truth is you bury a part of yourself with them, which is sealed in the earth. And we see, it's quite common in our communities, we see when family members fall out with each other, their character changes. Where yesterday we were welcoming them with open arms, and today we are ignoring each other for many years to come. وَالضُّحَى, by the morning brightness. In terms of falling out with someone, we always have the opportunity and we always have the power to change this and make amends. This is your morning brightness. This is your ray of light, and this is the Quran telling us, if it's possible for us, we should always aim to fix our situation. Sometimes it may be the case there's a personality clash between you and someone else, and the best solution sometimes is just to maintain a distance in order to maintain a cordial atmosphere. The next verse in the surah says, O Prophet, your Lord has not abandoned you, nor has he detested you. Sometimes in difficult moments in your life, you may feel low, you may feel the lowest of low. But remember that you always have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by your side. And this ayah here where it says, O Prophet, your Lord has not abandoned you, this ayah signifies that even our beloved, the one who pierced the veils in order to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even this great man had moments of deep sadness where he needed reassurance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He needed a pat on the back, if you like. At the death of a loved one, you may feel alone, constantly thinking about that person day and night, trying to accept and come to terms with what has happened. But we should always know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there waiting for us to call out to Him. By the morning brightness and by the night which covers it in darkness, He subhanahu wa ta'ala is always there. Our ultimate destiny and our ultimate journey is in constant motion towards Him. And we are also told in this surah that the hereafter is better for you than this life. Know that when we die or a beloved of ours has departed, where have they gone? They are in the care of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The one who is conscious in this life of his or her constant need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks forward to meeting his or her creator in the next life. The next ayah says, and your Lord is going to give you and you will be satisfied. In this life, we may have family members who have passed away. How do we deal with this trauma? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who gives us patience. He gives us reassurance like He reassured His Prophet. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives, the servant is satisfied. A moment to pause here and a moment of deep self-reflection for me here was that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes something away from me, am I still satisfied, bearing in mind it was all His in the first place? The next ayah says, did He not find you as an orphan and then sheltered you? In dealing with loss, we need hope. When the Prophet was an orphan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looked after him. If He sheltered him at them moments, He will always shelter him. And this is hope for us. I know Sheikh Arif always emphasizes on being godlike and having godlike qualities. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is inspiring hope and showing us that He looked after the orphan, in other words, He looked after the Blessed Prophet and sheltered him, what are we doing? What are we doing in terms of helping out the orphans or the needy? I want you to imagine a scenario where on the Day of Judgment we are asked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I was an orphan, why did you not look after me? We would reply, but you are Allah, how can you be an orphan? And maybe Allah replies to us and says, my servant here was an orphan, here in Birmingham he was an orphan and you abandoned him. What would our reply be then? And for me, what I have seen in my life, how people deal with the loss of loved ones, what helps them deal with this loss, is they help out in orphanages, in food drives and so on. But what happens here is this brings a coolness to the soul and alleviates the heavy weight that is upon us. Seeing someone else smile by providing them with food, clothes and shelter, just knowing you're making a difference in their life, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen you for this specific job, is a blessing, and it kind of frees the soul. And the catalyst for this in many cases has been the death of a loved one. And sometimes it's the death of a loved one that really makes us open up and allows us to truly be empathetic. For example, in Bradford a few years ago, we had a father who lost his son to a tragic car accident. So now what he's doing is he's working hard on campaigns to change the rules of the road so other parents don't have to suffer what he suffered. The next verse says, "And he found you lost and guided you." This is so powerful in dealing with many situations in our life, where we find ourselves lost, stuck in a rut, or lost in the maze of life, or lost in our thoughts. We feel at times lost without our loved ones who have nurtured us and always been by our side. We feel this empty hole not only in our lives, but also our souls. And it is in these specific moments that the soul is craving the guidance of the Almighty. In these moments of vulnerability, it is perhaps the easiest time to call out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then if we take advantage of this vulnerability and this moment of our life, one sincere dua is all it takes to change everything. Or a moment of inspiration may come to you. Or you might do a dua like I felt, and I've got a job that's fit perfectly with my daily routine. And I know people have felt this in this room, that they're working and it fits in with their Hawza studies. And in terms of dealing with the loss of loved ones, we might meet similar people who have gone through the same. They might have lost a son, or a daughter, a niece, a nephew, or a best friend. Now there's a support group where before, because you didn't deal with this loss, you may not have never come across these people. Now you can empathize and console each other. So what this does is it actually opens up the soul, and it opens doors that were once closed to you, and now you see life in a new sort of way, in a new direction. And this is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In verse 9, Allah tells us to never abandon the orphans, because in most cases, the orphans are the ones that have lost the most. They have lost their two support lines, which they thought that they would always be there for them. They've lost the two people on this earth that they would always rely upon. And in verse 10, we are told that when somebody needs our help, we should always help if it's within our capacity. That means we may be able to pass them on to someone else, another group or another organization that can help them deal with the loss. There is no easy way of dealing with loss. There's no magic formula of remaining strong. But this surah shows that strength comes from within. Strength comes from our reliance on God. And strength comes from helping others. As St. Augustine says, "When I think I'm closer to finding God, I have never been more further away at that specific moment. And when I feel I am most distant from God, in fact, that's when I've been closest to knowing God." And as the Quran says, "And He found you lost and guided you." Similarly, Aba Abdullah alayhi salam states, "The one who has found you, what has he lost? And the one who has lost you, what has he found?" May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive the shortcomings of our marhumeen and forgive our shortcomings. May we love the ones who love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May we be able to follow the path of the Prophets and Ahlul Bayt. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the strength to overcome trials and tribulations. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wadduha wal-layli idha saja ma wadda'aka rabbuka wa ma qala. وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْطِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى. ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر وأما السائل فلا تنهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث. Salawat. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala ashrafil anbiya wa sayyidul mursaleen wa habibi ilahil alameen Abil Qasimi Muhammad. وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المقربين الغرر الميامين سيما بقية الله في الأرضين وحجته على خلائق أجمعين سيدنا وإمام زماننا وصاحب نعمتنا وولي أمرنا مهدي هذه الأمة وطعوس أهل الجنة الحجة بن الحسن العسكري فداه ورواه العالمين. So, for the second part, I would like to expand on what I mentioned in the first part about being stuck in a rut, as we northerners say, or feeling abandoned or heavy-hearted. Why do we feel like this? Yesterday, I was watching a video by Ali Raza Panahian where he says, whenever you feel heavy-hearted, go and whisper a prayer at the door of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's house and say, "Oh Allah, have you abandoned my heart? Has my heart been contaminated?" Then he says, how many times have you felt your heart has hardened, and have you stood at the door of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a few minutes and uttered these words to him, and he did not open your heart and he rejected your dua? How many times? He then offers a challenge to the audience. He says, anyone who has done this, that they've begged and pleaded Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he has turned away from you, stand up right now if anyone has done this. He says, can anyone say, I went to Allah's house numerous times and he did not caress my heart so that it would become soft? Can this person say, I stood and said, Ya Allah, has my heart been discarded? Is my heart useless? And Allah did not reply to him and he did not soften your heart? The truth is, brothers, the truth is that he has never abandoned us. It was us who abandoned him. We turned away from his worship and we started worshipping our desires, our carnal desires. Instead of prostrating to him, we prostrated to the destiny of our desires. We followed wherever that path took us. But we must always remember that the door of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always awaiting the knocker. And the quote-unquote ear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always awaiting the pleader. All you have to do is approach him, beg him, and he will answer. But the issue in our society, I think Adam mentioned this 2 weeks ago, is of instant gratification and our attachment to our external senses. Due to this instant gratification and attachment to our external senses, it has led me and I don't know if I can say this, it led us to this question that can we even comprehend the love of God? Can we feel this abstract feeling or connect with Him? It seems the more technologically advanced we become, the more further distant and the further we become away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The thing is, nowadays, if we feel upset, we run to the supermarket, we might grab a chocolate gateau cake, or we go onto YouTube for consolation, or we ring the takeaway for food. It's all about instant gratification. It seems nowadays the protocol is any means but God. We've got 5-6 ways, we pick them rather than God. And if we continue filling our sadness by these means, the question remains, is it possible for us to comprehend the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? But remember, this comprehension comes from the heart. This is fahm, is deep understanding. It comes from the heart. And even things that can be perceived by the external senses, they're still indescribable by our words. As Agha Panahian says in the very same lecture, something cannot be expressed through words, and he gives the example of the scent of jasmine. He says about describing the scent of jasmine, he says, قابل بزبان آمدن نیستن. He says it is not possible for the words to arrive at the tongue to be uttered. And the only way to explain it is to say, look, here is the smell of jasmine, and this is what it smells like. Even though many people have had prior experience to this scent, it cannot be described by words, no matter how much affinity you have to this scent. It cannot be encapsulated by words. Likewise, love must be perceived by the heart. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves us. We can bring the greatest proofs for this love, but we will still never understand it. Because this is beyond burhan, this is beyond demonstration. Because it is the heart which is receptive to this love. It is the inner eye. And maybe it's because of this reason there's so much emphasis on prayer in the Quran and from the ahadith of the A'imma, and specifically the Prophet. Maybe he was commanding us to pray is so he could feel this love and intimate connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he felt, in order that we get tranquility from the direct source of tranquility, which is God. I found a hadith which perfectly sums up the points I've mentioned about being intimate friends with Allah and loneliness and helping others. And it's attributed to the sixth Imam. I'm just reading it from this book, The Scale of Wisdom, page 118. It says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Anhu alayhi salam, Ma min mu'minin illa waqad ja'ala Allahu lahu min imanihi unsan yaskunu ilayhi hatta law kana ala qullati jabalin lam yastawhish. The sixth Imam here says, Allah makes the faith of every single believer his own source of intimacy, so that we will never feel lonely, so that he will never feel lonely even if he were on top of a mountain. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to purify ourselves and become his intimate friends, and help others on the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Could we please recite a Surah Fatiha for our departed loved ones? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina wa Mawlana Muhammad. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala Aliyin Amir al-Mu'mineen. وعلى صديقة الطاهرة فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين وعلى سبتي الرحمة وإمامي الهدى